Hi, if you're watching this video, it's because you have shown interest in being a volunteer with Created, and so I am going to just kind of take you through our volunteer training. So my name is Jillian, I'm the director here at Created, and I have had the honor and privilege of being here for the past 7 years. So today, again, like I said, you should have already emailed our team about wanting to do the volunteer training, and I'm going to walk you through our volunteer training packet, which you should have received over email, which starts with a page that says Created Volunteer Training. If you haven't received that, you can email our team at info@createdwomen.com, and they'll send you a packet over, because this will be a lot easier if you have that information with you. So today I'm going to try just within the next 20 minutes to just go through all the information you would need to know if you're going to volunteer with Created, and then we can get you started. And just to get started on that subject, the way that our volunteer process works, you would have to fill out a volunteer application. We would review that, we would schedule you an interview, and then we make sure you go through the volunteer training. This volunteer training is just a generic volunteer training that covers the history and everything that a volunteer needs to know about Created. If you are looking to be an outreach volunteer or maybe a mentor in one of our programs or something like that, you would also do another training with the staff member that you're going to be working with that goes way more in depth into that actual volunteer role and what that looks like. So just to get us started, in your email, you should have also received a couple different video links that are also on our YouTube channel. So I would encourage you, before you continue on into this training, to go ahead and watch the video link that's just Created's mission, and that will explain, it gives a good overview of our programs and who we are. So just to give you a little bit of history on Created, Created actually began in Tampa as a outreach organization in 2007. So we are now 14 years old. September is actually our birth month. And so we have been working in our city for 14 years. We started with our founding team really feeling like we know that women are being abused, we know that women are being exploited. What can we do about that in our city? And so they really started very simply just going out and meeting the women where they're at and letting them know that there was a place that they could go, that there was love, and then really trying to intentionally ask questions and figure out, what is it that they would need as they move forward in their future. So we started in 2007, like I said, really with just that first street outreach team that was going out and meeting women where they're at. We opened our first home about a year after that, which we call our long-term home, The Sanctuary, and we've been running that program for 13 years. Since the time that we opened, we've served over 203 women through that long-term program. And we went in the last 14 years from just doing street outreach to we also have other outreach programs as well. So we have teams that go out and do club outreach at 5 different strip clubs in our city. We also reach women that are working in the brothels, which in Tampa, they're most commonly fronted as massage parlors, or they're called lingerie shops. So the team that does club outreach does clubs, and then we also go into 3 lingerie shops, and then we also have a team that goes into brothels in our city that are disguised as massage parlors. So those are some of our outreaches. We also have a jail outreach team. That team can only have about 2 people go at a time, so it's a little harder to get approved. But if you're interested in that process, we definitely would love for you to go through that process as well. But we teach a class with the women that are in the jail once a week, and so that's another outreach program. We also operate a drop-in center at our main location, which is over on Nebraska. If you're familiar with Tampa, you know that that's the main area for prostitution and trafficking in our city. And we offer a drop-in center where women can come in and get clothing and toiletries. And really, all of our outreaches have the same goal of meeting a woman where she's at and letting her know that she can get resources and that she can get the things that she needs. But it's all about introducing a new relationship to her and showing her that we have a place of belonging and a place of refuge that she can come to when she's ready. So that's how we started. And then I'll get more into our housing programs later, but we do have short-term and longer-term housing programs that we offer women as well. We serve approximately 89 women a week currently through all of the programs that we offer. The next page that you'll see in your volunteer training is our mission statement, which says, created as a nonprofit, non-denominational Christian organization committed to the restoration of vulnerable women involved in the sex industry to an understanding of their value, beauty, and destiny in Jesus Christ. It is important to know, if you're getting involved with us, that Created is a faith-based organization. That is something that's really core to our identity as we've started, but also as we continue to grow. We do like to point out, though, we are definitely not pushy or demanding that any of the women that we serve are faith-based. And there are volunteer opportunities if maybe you do not identify as a Christian. There are some volunteer opportunities you can get involved in, but certain ones that are maybe, teaching a Bible study or mentoring someone one-on-one are something that we would be looking for someone who shares the same background as our organization. So that's just something to know if you're looking to get involved. How does this issue impact our city? So like I said, we are located in Tampa, Florida. Florida consistently ranks third in the U.S. for the number of calls made to the human trafficking hotline. And we're also ranked third in the number of cases that are reported. Tampa has more strip clubs per capita than any other city in the U.S., and we were recently ranked third in the nation for the amount of illicit massage parlors in a city. And those reports are mostly done by Polaris, which is a anti-trafficking program that has a helpline that women call. So when you hear about the human trafficking hotline, that's Polaris, and they pull numbers together and do a lot of research as well. And then, but there's also a lot of great resources that you can go and look onto if you're looking for more information. So I highly encourage you to do that. For Created, it's really important for us to point out what kind of language you'll hear us use and what we mean by that. So the next slide talks about what do we mean by sex industry and human trafficking. So Created uses very specific language when we're talking about this subject. If you haven't already heard this statistic, the average age of entry for someone into prostitution is 13 years old. And that is a very common story that we hear through our outreaches when we're meeting women that are currently involved in that part of the industry. And the other thing to know is that majority of the women that are currently being exploited or trafficked do not necessarily self-identify as a trafficking victim. It's kind of one of those things where they have to learn and have that paradigm shifted through education and awareness. But when they're currently in that situation, most of the women will be talking about, their boyfriend or their friend, or, they'll call them a certain family term. And so you're not always going to know just from the language that they're using that they're in that situation. Again, we do not require women to self-identify as trafficking victims for us to serve them through our outreach programs or our residential programs. But that's something where when you're around us and you're around our staff, you won't hear us use the word human trafficking as much as you'll hear us use the term sexually exploited, because that is something that everyone that we're serving can identify as and has that understanding in their experience. So human trafficking is modern day slavery and involves the use of force, fraud, or coercion to obtain some type of labor or commercial sex act. Traffickers use force, fraud, or coercion to lure their victims and force them into commercial or sexual exploitation. How do our programs work together? So I mentioned we have outreach programs and we also have residential programs. All of those really feed into each other at Created. So when we are out serving women and offering places of belonging, I always talk about those are really our touch points. We're out just trying to sow seeds, to meet as many women as we can and let them know here are the resources that you can enter into. And then as they're ready, women will call through our helpline, or they'll come into our drop-in center, or they'll contact us in some way and start coming into our safe housing programs. We also get referrals from other community partners as well. And so all of our programs really feed into each other. And even with our housing, we have safe housing that are shorter term programs, and then we also have longer term. And the women we serve often will start in the short term and then continue the steps into our long term program. But we also have women who maybe they come into our shorter term program and they decide, I really want to be independent. I'm not interested in a long term option. And so we help them find jobs and housing as well. So every woman that we meet is completely different, but that's why all of our programs have to kind of work together to make an individual case plan for each woman that we serve. The next slide that you'll see is our model. So this slide is the 4 things that if it is a program that Created is running, one of these 4 things will exist. These are our 4 pillars, the 4 things that really make up who we are and how we operate. So the first one is outreach. So outreach, we are seeking to pray and befriend women that are still out there. One thing that you'll hear us say a lot in our community is that we're always still looking for the woman that's still out there. We're always making a seat at the table for her. We also often in our prayer times and in our community times will light a candle for the women that are out there, and we're just always trying to remember that that's a huge part of our identity, and our huge part of our mission is to be out there looking for her. Community is our other pillar. So when I say programs, often people think of a more residential style, treatment style maybe program, but we're really not. We're very community based. We use apartments and houses, and we want women to feel like this is their home and this is their community and this is their place of belonging. So community and building community is very important to our work. So we do a lot of community meetings, we do a lot of studies together, we have a lot of meals together, really to build that out. Holistic care is our third one. So we are trying to support women, again, whether it's somebody serving through our outreach programs or someone who's in our residences, we are meeting every need that we possibly can when it comes to health, mental health, recovery, spiritual needs. We're really looking at the holistic person and trying to build a plan that works for her. And then empowerment. And in Created, I always say it's empowerment in the small things as much as the big things. So while we have our job training program and our social enterprises, which are Created Boutique and Created Cuisine, which are job opportunities for the women. So those are big pieces of empowerment where we're really helping them figure out what do you want your future to look like and to help them achieve those goals. Those are just important as the conversations that we're having on a daily basis about helping women find their voice and helping them decide their own things for their future. So we try very hard not to make decisions for them, but to empower them to make their own decisions and move forward in their own healing journey. The next slide that you're going to look at is where it says our model. So this kind of gives an example of what it looks like for a woman that we meet to kind of come into Created's programs. So we make a point of contact first. So that could be anything. It could be someone referring her to us. It could be meeting her on our outreach services. It could be her calling our helpline. And then we do a needs assessment. She then enters into our safe housing, or we also have a case management option that if she already is in somewhere that she feels is safe, we can just start meeting with her regularly and case manage her. She then begins our programming, which includes job search and job training. And then the goal is for her to exit to stable income and stable housing. Now, in between that entrance and exit is a lot of other groups and classes, life skills that we are including and embedding into her life. This is a good time. There's a video that we sent as well, which shows our street outreach team in action. And so you can look at the video that links to a news article that talks about our street outreach team. That video should have shown you just a really good example of what it looks like actually in our outreaches, which I explained before, and what that kind of volunteer opportunity looks like on a nightly basis. How do we measure success is the next one. I always, Created, again, because we're a community model, because we're about like what it is to one woman, we know that we're on a long journey when it comes to healing and recovery with every woman that we serve. So we measure success in a few different ways. So our biggest measure of success is we want to know, was the woman introduced to Jesus while she was here? Did she leave the industry? And then our third is, did she go and make disciples? And what we mean by those three things is, if we met her even for just a day, or if she was in our programs, did she experience love and belonging while she was here, which we would consider attributes of getting to know Jesus? Did she make a decision to leave the industry? And then also, did she go and make disciples, we're meaning, did she find the thing that she felt called to, the thing that she felt like was her was her purpose for her life, and go and start pursuing those things. There's another video link that I would encourage you to look at now, which is a testimonial video, and you can hear some of those testimonials of women who have been through our program and have kind of, we would say gone and done those things. So I would encourage you to watch that one as well. And now the next slide talks about, I mentioned the 3 levels of housing that we offer. So in the video that you watched, those are all graduates of our sanctuary program, which is our highest level of housing. So that's the third one that's listed on the graph right there. That level of housing is our long-term program. So women can live rent-free, it's no cost to them, for up to 2 years in our program that we call the sanctuary. And in that program, they work through 4 phases and they have a case manager and a program coordinator that work with them daily. And they are working on stabilizing in their recovery, then starting their healing journey and going through trauma therapy and whatever it is that they need for their journey. And then once they kind of stabilize that, they start their job training and begin working and building into a stable income. So that is a long-term program. Women, again, can live there for up to 2 years. Our average length of stay is actually closer to 14 months. And then our housing that is like under that is our anchor program. So that's 30 to 90 days. So that's for a woman who is, really just trying to figure out what's the next step. So the women in the anchor housing are either those I mentioned before who are interested in independent housing, and we're helping them get a job and stabilize and then get into an independent housing, or they're applying at other programs like Sanctuary or other programs in our nation to go and stay long-term and work through a recovery and healing process there as well. We specifically partner with homes that are similar to Created and have those attributes of having both recovery and healing opportunities for them. And then our other housing that's listed there, our level 1 housing, is our safe housing program. So that is where we are meeting immediate needs. It's a lot of crisis management. That's our safe housing where women can come in, and they usually stay for up to 3 to 5 days. We work with extended stay hotels currently, and that's really just a spot where we can put someone to stabilize, get some rest, get some food, and then we move them into the next level as quickly as we can. If they don't go into our anchor program, then we're getting them into another community partners program as quickly as possible. So those are our 3 levels of housing. The slide right next to that one, which it might have been right before, was again I was talking about statistics. So our annual report from 2020 is listed there, and you can review the numbers there. But I think one statistic that we're really proud of when we're talking about those levels of housing is in 2020, 65 women found safety and security in our housing, and 62% of those residents exited into safe housing, which we are working with a community that has a lot of recovery needs, and so relapse is very common. So for us, that's a really great statistic that 62% actually stayed and committed and exited into a safe housing program. The next slide is the role of a Created volunteer. So whatever you're doing with joining our team or our outreach, you become a part of our community and a part of the story of these women's lives, just encouraging them and telling them how great of a future that they have. And so we're really excited for you to be here. We're really excited for you to join us, whatever it is that you're interested in. The slide that's next is our sanctuary process, which I won't go through, but it just kind of lists like what it looks like to go through the sanctuary program. And again, that's our long-term housing program. So the most important things about being a volunteer. So there's a slide that says the attributes of a Created volunteer. So we're looking for volunteers that can exhibit strong boundaries, servant leadership, can maintain confidentiality, will be a peacemaker, are trauma-informed, and know how to utilize self-care. So being trauma-informed is often kind of a buzzword that's used nowadays, but it really, at the end of the day, comes down to being able to empathize with another person and act out of that empathy rather than acting out of fear or confusion or not knowing what to say. So trauma-informed care is about restoring safety, honoring strengths and resilience, being able to anticipate and prepare for triggers, and engaging in meaningful activities. So the next slide, 2 things to know that go along with being trauma-informed are the next 2 slides that you'll see, which one is called Understanding Addiction and the other is Understanding PTSD. So I mentioned already, the majority of the women that we are serving are currently also in a journey with their recovery. So if you are on our outreach side, then you will be encountering women who are currently high, are currently using, and may need help in that area. And so if that makes you feel uncomfortable, then our outreach side probably isn't the best for you. But honestly, the way that we are trauma informed in that approach is we just meet them where they're at. Our goal in our outreach is to offer a gift, to let them know that they are safe, and to let them talk to us if they're ready to talk to us. So that's just something to know. Also on our residential side, if you're mentoring or working on teaching a class or working on one-on-one with the women, a lot of the women will use a lot of recovery language in the classes and the things that they're learning. So becoming familiar with that might be important if you're trying to work one-on-one with our residences. And yeah, that's just something to know, that addiction and recovery is definitely a huge part of our work. Understanding PTSD. So all of our women suffer from some form of PTSD, and that can show itself in a number of ways. Now, again, as their staff, we're working on the side of making sure that they have treatment for that, making sure that they're learning grounding, and making sure they're going through therapy. So a volunteer is not expected to know or do any of that. But just things to know is, for a lot of the women that we serve, this is their first time starting counseling, or first time really coming to a place of rest. So they might be dealing with nightmares at night. They might be dealing with intrusive thoughts that are coming up during the day. So we just always encourage our volunteers, if something happens where you feel like a woman is maybe being triggered or having a panic attack or something like that, call a staff member immediately and we'll walk you through that. But even on our outreaches, there are times I always use for street outreach, for example, you don't expect the women to look you in the eye and hold a conversation, because they're hyper aware, they're looking at their surroundings, and that doesn't mean they don't want to talk to you. It just means that this is where they're at right now, and so we're meeting them where they're at, and we're just trying to empathize with who they are and what they're going through. So those are some of the things that you need to know. Next, I'm just going to go through quickly our volunteer opportunities. So and again, I mentioned if you are planning to do outreach or you're planning to be a mentor, you'll go through a lot more training about how we engage with their recovery, how we handle situations that come up if a woman is struggling. And so I know it might seem like I just breezed over that a little bit, but it's because we go much more into that in the other trainings that we do. So volunteer opportunities that we have for our care programs, which is any of our residential services, we have volunteers that come in and lead classes. It can be really anything that you're interested in leading. We have support groups, we have health times, we have volunteers that come in and do art therapy, all kinds of things. So if you're interested in leading a class, that's a great way to support us. Mentoring is a one-on-one relationship with one of our residences that you are taking them out, doing discipleship. Some people do book studies. It really is dependent on you and that woman and figuring out what works for you. We also have people that cook meals for us, and so if you're interested in that, we'll send you a sign up and get you started. And then we have groups that come in and do volunteer days, which we're definitely open to as well. We also have the outreach teams that I've mentioned. We also have a drop-in center and our job training program. Both of those we operate during the day, Monday through Friday, and so we need volunteers who are able to give during that time as well, which I know is harder for a lot of people. But that looks like really being in our drop-in center or being in the job training program and working with women as they come in. In the drop-in center, that's helping them find clothes, just having a good conversation with them, helping them pick out toiletries. And in the job training program, that would be helping them navigate the computer, because it's a computer-based program. If they're getting nervous or something confuses them, helping talk them through that. And we also have tutoring needs for that job training program as well, because it has a GED component. So we have tutoring needs for the women who are working through that GED program. We also have the Created Cafe, which is where we do a meal through our drop-in center. It's the second Saturday of the month. And then we have transport needs that come up if you're willing to transport a woman to and from a doctor's appointment or something like that. We also have admin needs, so if you're interested in helping us input information into databases or anything like that, that's always a need that we can help, that you could help us with. And then we also have an event committee that puts on a fundraising event for us every year. So all of those are things that you can get involved in. And if you have an idea that you're interested in and that you think could benefit Created, we definitely would want to hear that. So we would love to talk through that with you. But I wanted to end with just going over again, what are the things that you can do as a Created volunteer? So the most important things are being able to show empathy, being able to listen well, never trying to fix someone or tell them what they need to do, but just listening and helping guide them in their next steps. Allowing women to come to conclusions about their own past in their own time. Being emotionally safe, which means not over disclosing about yourself, but just listening to them. Giving validation and respect to their story. Sharing concerns without imposing your own point of view. Having a genuine openness within your posture and in your body language as you're talking to one of the women. Providing space to talk about important or challenging things without judgment or blame. Tolerating fear and uncertainty if that's where they're at. And then asking questions that guide them to make their own conclusions. And then we have on here, remember, it's never about us. We pray for those that we meet. It's not our, and then we just kind of help them through those next parts of their journey. So those are the things that we just always like to go over with all of our Created volunteers, a little bit about our history, a little bit about what it looks like to volunteer with us. So thank you so much for this time, and I'm sure we'll see you soon. Thanks again, and welcome to the Created family.